This has been very, very helpful. I am one of the United Way change makers, Emmanuel Sims here. And this has been very valuable. This is my first meeting. I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm looking forward to more. Thank you again. So the biggest issue that I'm having is I'm like really connected with my genius, so I have a lot of ideas, and I'm learning to learning systems and learning to send them places, but I don't know how to pick which one really deserves that priority. And I'm pretty sure it's the obvious answer is which one's bringing the most profit, but I don't have interest in those anymore. So what do you do in as far as managing that time and interest?
Great question, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, where are you located?
I'm in Baltimore, well, Pikesville, Maryland.
Gotcha. Well, thanks. It's a great question. So there's a couple different perspectives I would bring to this. Number one, um, there's a lot of people out there that go, I'm an idea person, right? And sometimes that means I'm a shitty executor, right? Sometimes people just like bounce from thing to thing to thing, right? Because they don't have the skill or they don't put people around themselves that have the skill to execute, right? So none of us should ever use the excuse of, I have vision, I have energy, I have passion as an excuse for not executing something. Okay. Now, you may say, well, I don't have those skills, not you, Emmanuel, particularly, but any of us might say, I might have those skills, which is fine. I got to make sure I bring people around, because if I don't have execution skills, we can all drink bourbon all day long and come up with ideas, right? But how do we actually bring them into reality? That's number one. Number two is, Emmanuel, specifically to you, what you're passionate about matters, right? That makes a difference, because you're going to have to bring the energy and the effort to this to make this happen. So that definitely goes into what you should focus on. I don't think necessarily, Emmanuel, it's the thing that's bringing the most money. That might not be it. It might be, but what it really is what is my playground where nobody else is playing? What am I defining that the world needs that they can't get in other places, right? And how do I lean into that, right? And really bring that to life with all of the marketing and messaging and support and what I need. And so when you have 10 of those, right, um, you're trying to decide, how do I pick the one? The hard part about this, most great ideas and most great markets do not exist before you create them, right? We tell the story all the time. When Henry Ford produced the first car, for every car that was out there, there was 5,000 horses, right? So when the day before somebody said, well, what do we need? And somebody would say, we need a better horse. And Henry Ford said, no, we don't need a better horse. We need a car, right? Or think about the musical Hamilton, right? The musical Hamilton, here's the idea. We're going to take somebody that, frankly, if you ask the country and you ask how many people know who Alexander Hamilton is, right? Nobody would know. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a musical about him, right? Which should have, Emmanuel killed it right there,
Right.
right? And we're going to make it hip hop, which they would literally have taken you to the insane asylum, right?
Mm.
And it became the fourth grossest, just about to cross over $1 billion, the fourth highest grossing musical ever made. Okay, so the problem, Manuel, is that you take all this energy and passion and this and that, and you've got to be able. And a lot of times, if you go and say, and investors will say this at times, if an investor, all the investors that rejected Hamilton said, "What's the market for this?"
Right.
And if you could go online and find the market, if you go online or chat GPT it and says the market's $1 trillion, it's already saturated, right?
Right.
If you can put it in an investment report, right? I remember somebody said to me when we started rewarding people for being healthy, which didn't exist, there were reward programs everywhere. They're like, when we started to raise money, they're like, where's your data on the market? We're like, hey, idiots, there is no market. That's the point, right? So the point is that this is all the soup, Emmanuel, that goes into the ability to take value, combine your passion, which is, the gas in the car, and take what you see as a value and use your intuition. Now, you got to bounce it off other people and get feedback and whatever. But sometimes it's the intuition of, like, when we did rewarding people for being healthy, they're like, what are you doing? You're going to pay people to not eat donuts? Like, really? So it takes this really healthy balance of kind of ego and humility to
Mhm.
listen but also sometimes, Emmanuel, to define. That's what we mean by a playground that nobody else is playing. Like the day before Hamilton, and you searched hip hop musicals about, you know, historical figures that nobody knows, there wouldn't have been any Google search results.
Right.
But what I would tell you is, especially if you have a creative energy, don't let that creative energy not make you say, I know I need execution capability. And even if it's not you, and if that's not your jam, no problem. Try to find somebody with you. Even if you can't hire them or whatever, try to help somebody that says, so I'm an executor. I can help move the ball down the field on financials or goals or whatever it may be. But this is the hard part, Emmanuel. Think about all the stuff that goes into the stew that I just described.
Absolutely. And I think and may I add one last piece. Hearing you say knowing someone who sees the execution, I think for a lot of us the issue is not knowing exactly how far the field is. And I can get stuff done. I can, boom, it's perfect. But then the life of the project is marketing, is advertisements, is passing that baton. And I didn't even know that that was like part of the
Yep.
race. I'm like, oh, okay, there's four people I need to pass this thing to. So thank you for that. And I appreciate the, everything that was on point. Very, very much so. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think, think about when we go and buy a car. This is one of the biggest disservices that we've all done to us as entrepreneurs. When we go buy a car, we may not know exactly what kind of car we want to buy. We know it has 4 tires and a steering wheel. Like when you go out in the morning and you get dressed, you may not know exactly the shirt you're going to put on or the pair of shoes you should wear shoes, right? When you're a chef, right, and you've never run a restaurant before, right? So what you have to understand is there's the craft, and that's a skill, right? Uh, and then there's what's a business. And if you don't know what that is, no problem. Just as you said, man, recognize that you don't know, because you know what? There's tons of people that have run businesses before, right? There's tons of people that have experience that have done this. That this is. I'm gonna say it's easy, but it's natural too. They know what the car has, right? And if you're fortunate enough to be one of those people that has vision and you can see different things, and you're like, we don't need a horse, we need a car, right? You have to realize that has to go hand in hand with execution. And too many times our passion, right, makes us not take a step back and say, okay, I have to have the ego to say, I'm going to create a brand new thing. I'm going to create a car. I'm going to create Hamilton, right? And at the same time to go to say, you know what, I want to do that, but I've never raised money before. So got it. Don't know how to do it. I have to be smart enough to understand I need that part of the car. And how do I go be creative about how to try to find those resources?
I love that analogy. Thank you. It sticks.
Cool, cool, cool. Anybody else? Okay, so I'll give you another example of priorities. There was somebody that had created soups and chilies, and she decided that the thing that she should do as she started to get a little bit of traction was to take money that she raised and build a factory, because she was like, you know what, with trying to get the soups into retail and trying to manufacture it with a third party, right, it's going to be really hard for me to make money. And so if I own the factory, right, then I'm going to be able to make the soup and make it on a level where I can make a good margin, because I've got to, put it in, name your supermarket chain and whatever. So she said, okay, my priority is to build a factory. Cool. Well, what does that mean? That means the dollar that you take, that next dollar that comes in, you're going to comply with the FDA, build the VAT, get inspectors, whatever the hell it takes to build a factory that makes soup, right? Really, at the beginning, the money you make doesn't matter. When you're making 5 bowls of soup, it makes no difference how much money you make, right? It's when you make 5 million bowls of soup that it matters, right? So why wouldn't you take that dollar and say, I'm going to give it to a third party, they're going to make the soup for me. I'm not going to be in the soup business at all. I don't even know who the FDA is, right? I'm just going to make sure they make it really well. And they're going to make it and they're going to ship it. right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get in 10 supermarket chains. So my priority is not building a factory. My priority is sales and marketing. I'm going to get out there and get it all over the place. And you know what you're going to do later on? Your priority might change to, oh, I'm doing 1,000,000 of these things. Now I'm going to go build a factory. Or now I'm going to go to another supplier and say, I've got 1,000,000 in volume. Would you like to be my supplier for this? Right. So, when we think about what these priorities are, remember what I'm not talking about is which task list do I use? Yes, there's task lists and there's project management, but if you sit down and you go, I'm going to go build a factory, I'm going to put all my money into a factory, right? You're making a strategic decision about what your priorities should be, and then that's what ends up in your task list, right? If you said, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to have somebody else make it. I don't really care how much money I make, right? But I'm going to be able to focus on what is the most important thing. Because if I sell 100 bowls of soup, and I'm on those 100 bowls of soup, I make $5. Who cares? But if I sell 1,000,000 bowls of soup because I ran out and did sales and marketing and took all the money I got for building a factory and I put it into sales marketing, I made 5,000,000 bowls of soup. And on the first 1,000,000, I broke even. But then I went to a vendor and said, okay, I have 5,000,000 units. Tell me what you'll charge me to make this. And now I start to make money. So a lot of it is just, why do I prioritize what gets in my day with a strategic alignment to what matters at that stage of your business? Okay, does that make sense to people?
Say it again.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. And remember, you're like, no one's going to make the soup as good as me, and like all that stuff. Yes, of course, 100%. Right. But those are things these are skills that you develop that probably the most important thing that you do as the leader of the company, especially when you go from visionary or idea person to CEO, is setting the priorities of the organizations with a strategic focus. Right? What is the most important thing? Do I make my cupcakes better when nobody cares about my cupcakes? Nope. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you make your cupcakes and you turn them from a 7 to an 8 because nobody's paying attention anyway. Right? What are the priorities? Should I be out there building a factory? Nope, that's not the right decision at the beginning. At the beginning, it's I need volume, I need sales, I need branding, I need people to know who I am, and then I'll go figure out, right? I do it because when you do that, when you do go to the third party, that is a priority because it has to be done well. You got to go to the third party and make sure the recipe's right, and like it doesn't just happen. Like every single priority requires focus and attention and regular and consistent effort to be able to try to do it well. Okay, so you really have to go through the exercise of strategic or what are the right priorities, and then the things that end up in your day, right? And why they end up in your day. 75% of your day should be preordained because you've already aligned it to the priorities that you've set. Okay, and the one thing I would say is that don't think to yourself, yeah, that's true for everybody else, but not me. Because that's what we all think. Yeah, okay, Dharma, that makes sense in your type of business, but not me. Because I have to do it's the same for all of us, right? All of us have more to do in the time. All of us have, right, a million things we could do. The question is what we should do in our days every day. Okay, and that is some of the transition between being kind of a founder, a visionary, an idea person, and somebody that's going to execute something that's going to bring your passion to life and economic success to you.